Okay, good morning, my dear students. Topic for the day. For today, we are going start. We will be going with a new chapter. The new chapter is aggregate demand and related concepts. Aggregate demands and related concept. Okay. So first of all, we will understand the meaning of aggregate demand. As I taught you about the meaning of demand in microeconomics. So here in macroeconomics, aggregate demand is total demand for the goods and services which all of us wanted to buy in an economy in an accounting year. Okay. So total demand for all the goods and services. Total demand for all the goods and aggregate means for all the goods. Okay. For all the goods. Okay. So it refers to the total value of final goods and services which all the sectors what they are doing in an economy are planning to buy in an accounting year. When you talk about the all the sectors, if the primary, secondary, tertiary sector, or when you talk about the private sector or the government sectors, so all of us, those who are there in the economy, what they are doing, they are planning to buy different goods and services in an accounting year. So they have to plan, means what we will be buying in 2020 or in 2020, 21, 22. So total value of all the final goods and services. Okay, final goods and services. So that comes under the aggregate demand. Aggregate demand. So refer to the total value of all the goods and services, which are all the sectors. Okay, means all of us an economy in the prime. When you talk about the sectors, primary, secondary, tertiary sector, or when you talk about household sector and the government sector, private sector, what they are doing, they are planning to buy at a given level of income. Means with respect to their income, how much that a family having 5 lakh income, annual income is 5 lakh, so they are planning according to their income. The one who is getting 60 lakh rupee, so he or she is planning according to his or her standard, income level. So they are, means everybody, all of us are planning how much or what they have to buy in an accounting year. So that is about the meaning of aggregate demand. Meaning of aggregate demand. So next to it is what are the component of. Okay, good morning, Vijay. Okay. So next part is what are the components of aggregate demand? Components of aggregate demand. Okay. So A stand for aggregate and D for demand. So in short, sometimes we can also write AD. AD means aggregate demands. And what are the components of the aggregate demand? Components of the aggregate demand. First is private consumption expenditure, means household expenses. Expenditure by you, me, or Ankit, Mohit, or Pratik, like this. So our expenditure means private consumption expenditure. C stand for private or household consumption expenditure. So our consumption expenditure completely dependent on the disposable income. Now the meaning of, let me explain about the disposable income. one is one is income, another is disposable income. So the meaning of disposable income, let you are getting 6 lakh rupee per annum. Okay, your income is 6 lakh rupee per annum. Out of 6, you have to pay the income tax also. What? You have to pay income tax. Let you pay 10,000 as a income tax, or let 15,000 as a income tax. So 6 lakh minus income tax. Okay. Another second few penalties are there which are paid by you, fees are there which are paid by you. So you have to subtract all those means taxes, income tax, direct taxes. I'm talking about the direct tax paid by you. Then another penalties or fees. That amount is 30,000. So 6 lakh rupees minus 30,000. So how much is left? For 5 lakh 70,000. So this 5 lakh 70,000 rupees you can spend. So that is your disposable income. Your net income, your gross income, your total income. Okay, your total income is 6 lakh, but disposable income is only 5 lakh 70,000 rupees. So out of this, means this is the base for the consumption. Disposable income determine the consumption level. So if disposable income is more, if disposable income is more and more, consumption level will be high. Are you getting? So consumption of goods and services by the household, like you want to purchase laptop or new dress, chocolate, or consumption, then availing the services, net services, or health services, education. So all these comes under the private consumption expenditure. So when, okay, is it clear about the private consumption expenditure? Okay, so private consumption expenditure directly dependent on the disposable income. If disposable income will be more, consumption will be more. So I am writing here C for consumption by the private. Okay, so here I wrote C with it. Okay, so C for consumption by the private sector. Okay, consumption by private sector with it. Got it? Okay. Next point number 2, investment expenditure. Investment expenditure. Point number 2, investment expenditure. Understand? I stand for investment. I stand for investment. So investment by the, I wrote here, by all the private firms. By all the private firms or private sector. Okay, this investment. So investment expenditure like purchasing of machinery, technology. Okay, that comes under the investment. Means change in the capital stock. Change in the capital stock in accounting here comes under the investment. Okay, so investment by the private firms. So this investment by the private firm, it is assumed autonomous. Autonomous means it is autonomous and there is no any effect of change in the income. If income will be increasing, if the income of the private sector is increasing, if the income of the private sector is increasing, there is no any change on the investment by the private sector. It is assumed autonomous. Okay, it is assumed autonomous. Got it? It means remain constant. Got it? Understood? Okay. Any query? No. Then third point is third point. So third point is related to government. This is about the private. Now government. I wrote here G. Government. G. Government. So government expenditure. So government expenditure include expenditure on, okay, consumer and capital goods. Consumption of the consumer goods and capital goods. So government of India means government sector also consume the goods and also do investment on the capital goods. When we talk about the consumption of goods by the government sector, so like government has to maintain law and order. Government of India has to maintain law and order. So we have huge army. Okay. When you talk about then law and order. So there government is doing expenditure with it. Then expenditure on health, education, means government schools, government hospital, then transportation, okay, energy, transportation and defense. So these are the consumption expenditure by the government. Consumption expenditure by the government. When you talk about health, education, defense, law and order, okay. Then transport. So these are the consumption expenditure by the government. Second part that is concerned with the capital goods. Capital capital goods. So government also do expenditure or construct railways, roads and power plants. So government do expenditure for the construction of roads, power projects, hydro projects, then road, bullet train. So these are the expenditure by the is capital expenditure, investment. This is called investment by the government. So point number 3, government expenditure. So government G for government expenditure. So government expenditure for the consumption, okay, and capital goods, consumer and capital goods. Okay, so I have given the example that government also maintain law and order. Government do expenditure on the health and education, like right to education. Then government hospitals are there. There, government is giving free facility to the patients, and the transportation facilities there. Okay, and in case of the capital goods, then government doing the expenditure to maintaining, okay, construction of roads, hydro project, electric, and many more projects are there. So that comes under the government expenditure. Fourth point, okay, that is also the part of demand. Means when government is providing midday meal, it means there is a demand for the midday meal. Okay, when government is purchasing, okay, any equipments, machinery, okay, that is it means that there is a demand for the capital goods. Now fourth point is net exports. Net exports, export minus import, export minus import. So net export means now that comes under the part of aggregate demand. Why this is the part of AD, aggregate demand? Let we are producing the mangoes. Okay, we are exporting. Let we are exporting the mangoes. It means mangoes are demanded by non by the foreigners. That we are exporting softwares. So it means software are demanded by the rest of the world. Okay, so what they are doing is the foreigner, they are purchasing the goods, okay, or services from the Indian economy, and those goods and services are produced within the economy. Okay, so export, net export. Here I am talking about the net export. Okay, like we are exporting, the same way we are also importing the goods from the other countries. So difference, okay, that difference is equal to net export. So point number 1, private consumption expenditure. C, investment expenditure. I, these two are by the private. Third one, government expenditure on consumer and capital goods. Government expenditure on the consumer and capital goods. For G, for that we are using G. Fourth point, which comes under the aggregate demand, is net export. Net exports. Okay, so aggregate demand, the component of the aggregate demand, AD, aggregate demand is equal to C. C means consumption expenditure by the household. Consumption expenditure by the household. Now, after consumption, there is investment. So, private. Second is investment expenditure by all the private firms, and it is assumed constant. Okay, autonomous. It is autonomous. Autonomous to what? Income level. Okay, so there is no any effect on the investment with respect to change in the income. Okay, if income increases of the private sector, so there is no any change on the investment also. So this is about I. Now G. G means third point. Third point is G for government expenditure. Now government expenditure on consumer and capital goods. Consumer and capital goods. So total expenditure by the government of India on the final goods and services in a accounting year. That is also the part of aggregate demand. Last point, net export, export minus import. So Net export is also the part of aggregate demand. It means these goods are demanded by the foreigners, that we are exporting fruits, vegetables, software, okay, or any other technology, automobile, okay, or electronic gadgets. So that comes under the part of aggregate demand. So this is about beta aggregate demand, components of the aggregate demand. Any query about component of demand? Any query related to component of aggregate demand? Any? Okay. Mohit, Ankit, Rajveer. Okay. So AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus net exports. Keep in mind, this is the concept. AD is equal to C plus I plus G plus net export X minus export minus input. Export minus import. Any doubt? Any query? No. Okay. So next component, next part, that's aggregate demand in the two sector model. Aggregate demand in two sector model. Okay. So in the two sector model, when I talk about the two sector, it means one is household, another is producer. One is household and another is producer sector, or we can say firms. So this I will teach you tomorrow. Okay. So that is topic, and it will take some time. So tomorrow I will be teaching you about the this aggregate demand in the two sector model. Aggregate demand in the two sector models. I am highlighting meaning. What do you mean by the two sector? One is household, another is the producer sector. Okay. Any no query? So on the basis of it, I will be teaching you tomorrow also with it.